This is the Nikko Cedar Avenue in Japan. This is really fascinating. Now, they just refer to them as cedars. This is Cryptomeria japonica, which I suppose mostly we see in Australia as an ornamental large conifer. But here they grow into gigantic trees. These were planted 370 years ago. This particular tree here, which is by no means the biggest, would be well over 50 metres tall, in my opinion. That's a gigantic tree, it really is. Most of the really big ones in Japan have long since been cut down for timber, although there are some on one island that are about 1,000 years old. But here, planted 370 years ago, each tree is numbered and looked after. And this road that goes through here, so that you can look at them, underneath is constructed of huge concrete, sort of not blocks, but almost like Lego bits with holes in them and then backfilled with soil, so that as traffic passes over this, it doesn't compact the soil, leading to root death of the trees. So hopefully the trees have got a reasonably good future. But Cryptomeria japonica, they are Japanese cedars, and they are absolutely enormous. It's great to see. This is very good horticulture here. Great to see them doing what they're doing. Sumo is the national sport of Japan. Dates back around about 1,500 years. And the sumo wrestlers themselves are absolute gods in Japan, bigger than any of our sporting heroes in Australia, and they can earn around about $1 million each year. Now, I think you're going to enjoy this. Have you ever wondered how they actually train sumo wrestlers, what they do to get that big and learn the techniques? Well, we're going to take you to the Takasago Sumo Stable. This is where they build wrestlers. This is sumo wrestling. You have to excuse the low tones, because we've got to show respect to the fighters. Now, the young guys in the blackish belts, they're the juniors. The ones in the whiter belts are the more senior fighters. Despite their weight, they're actually very fit. The basics of sumo are not really all that complex, although I assume there's lots of techniques about how you achieve things. They crouch down either side of those two white lines and then obviously charge at each other together. Now, the loser is the first person to have any part of his body, other than the soles of his feet, touch the ground, or to get pushed outside of that circle. That's basically what it is. You've got to stay within the circle and on your feet. How high are you? How much do you weigh?
180 centimeters and 127 kilos.
And if you happen to hit your head, that's just bad luck.
I can't do much about it if I get hit in the head.
The guy in the white costume is training, but you'll notice every time he charges at the guy in the black one, the junior, and he's hitting him as hard as he can with the slaps. Here we go. Ooh, pushes him into the wooden post for good measure. You realise what a great life it is to be a sumo. Imagine sitting down to the favourite food of your whole life, and the fatter you get, the better. You can enjoy every mouthful, no guilt. Fantastic life. These are female sumo wrestlers, and I thought it might be done just for aerobics or fitness or something. These girls are really having a go at it. Nearly all of them are clashing with their heads like two rams. one pair of them did it something like 13 times, these violent head clashes. See how I think if we had doctors present and this was happening in Australia, they would stop them from doing this. The head clashes are absolutely horrific. Now, this girl is crying, tears pouring down her cheeks. I think tears of frustration. She wants to push this guy right out of the ring. As you can see, though, they're every bit as serious as the boys. Do you live in an ordinary apartment, or do you live with other sumos?
High-ranking sumo wrestlers, they wear white belts during this training. They are mainly married. They live at home with their family. But young wrestlers live together here, under the same roof. No private life.
So sumo is your entire world?
Yes, I really only have sumo in my life.
Are you wondering how the Japanese actually live? Well, got to bob down under the doors, but this is what's called a mat room, and you can see some of the rooms in the houses are quite traditional. This looks to me very much like the things we've all seen in various pictures. For instance, some of the walls are, yes, genuinely paper. This is a type of a mud type material, I suppose, with a bit of concrete in it and so on. Mat floors. And believe it or not, this is a bedroom. Actually, this doubles as the bedroom for the master of the house. But when you go round the place, there's bits of it that are reassuringly similar to the way we live and other bits that are more traditionally Japanese. For instance, there's the odd shrine around the house to a lost relative, which I suppose, you know, our equivalent would just be a picture up on the mantelpiece or whatever. Kitchens are not that much different. You should be aware most Japanese don't live like this. If you're in a city area, you couldn't afford to have a normal garden like we have in Australia. They live in apartments. But this is for the people that are a little bit out of town. And this is the garden out here, and the garden is quite nice. Notice again the use of rocks. You couldn't possibly have a Japanese garden without rocks. They really are the heart and soul of the garden. That's a glorious pine tree. Just look at the way that one's been trained out horizontally along. Beautiful Japanese maples. Stone pagoda. This is quite a good garden. Some cryptomerias. This house is about 20 years old. You can bet that a lot of these plants have been grown elsewhere. They would have actually been craned in here. This would have costed quite a lot of money, would cost a lot of money to keep up, and to them, it's a living sculpture worth the investment. Cherry blossom time is a very special time in Japan. The Japanese themselves value it very, very highly, and they themselves travel all over their country looking at the great displays of cherry blossom. Now, behind me, you've got two, Kanzan, or Kanzan, perhaps as they'd say it, and Shirate, the almost whitish pink in the background. Now, these are those large, voluptuous, double flowering things that we have in Australia and we love. But these are not the ones preferred by the Japanese. They prefer the more delicate ones, the smaller flowers, usually single, in other words, just one row of petals going around them. There's one hybrid called Prunus X or cross Yedoensis. That's more the sort of thing they like, and you can go and see great avenues of them. And I think Australians would look at one of those trees and go, why would you bother to grow that? They'd much rather this. But when you see Yedoensis in long avenues, this is one of the world's great trees. Much more graceful, much more elegant and beautiful. And that's the sort of thing that the Japanese prize. And they go in their millions each year to look at the fabulous displays, mostly of Yedoensis. This is another one of the cherries that we're reasonably familiar with in Australia. It's called Fugenzo. But as I've said before, they really regard varieties like that as bordering on vulgar. They really like the simpler ones, and when you look at the elegance of them, I think they're right. still to come are some real treats for you, some of the most treasured things anywhere on Earth. For instance, the world's best collection of koi carp. What do you think this fish is worth? You're in for a real shock. And we will show you the best collection of bonsai plants anywhere in the world. These are really stunning, and it was a great privilege for me to see these. And we're going to Ryoanji, regarded as the finest work of Japanese gardening ever.